Okay, I think I'm going to go ahead and get started. Unfortunately, I was hoping for a lavalier mic, so if you get to the point where you can't hear me because I'm not paying attention to where this microphone is, please let me know. I'm Mike St. John's. I'm giving the Newcomers briefing. I have the dubious honor of attending more of the IETF meetings than anybody else. I think this is my 93rd, if I remember correctly. So, does anybody recognize that? Anybody? I got one. Couple? Three? Okay. This is from a game called Adventure. It's a text game from way back when, my time, maybe not your time, if you will. And the words just after this were, "Welcome to Adventure, would you like instructions?" This is really what this session is all about, explaining to you how to survive the adventure or the crystal cave or whatever you want to call it of the IETF first meeting for you. So I'm not going to go really deeply into this, but you're going to see this in pretty much every session you attend here. This is the IETF's intellectual property policy. This basically says that if you're in an IETF meeting and you talk in public, pretty much anything you say is an IETF contribution. Be aware of that. If you want privacy or you want confidentiality, don't get up in the middle of one of these meetings and talk about it, because it will show up in somebody's document some way along the way. So please do get a chance, take a chance and read this, take some time and read this a little bit later. It will be interesting for you or useful for you to know what you're doing, but you don't have to read it right now. This presentation is going to hold on for about half a second while I get 7 or 8 people get in. How am I doing on the moving back and forth? You okay? How am I doing on the moving back and forth? Okay. Okay, continuing. This presentation is about the meeting. It's not about the IETF per se. It's about how to get the most out of your time in these 5 or 6 days that you're here. There's a history of the IETF, the Tao of the IETF. It's available. There's a URL listed later. Or find somebody like me and buy us a beer and we'll explain more about the IETF than you ever wanted to know. Okay. It's not about how to write a standard. You don't need to know that today. You may need to know it in 2 or 3 meetings, or you may already be involved in it, but it's not a general enough topic for you to worry about right now. We don't want you looking like this at the end of the meeting. And believe me, there are a number of people who have looked like that at the end of the meetings. This is an intense 5 or 6 days of a lot of information, a lot of things going on. Way back when, about meeting 12 or 13, I need to go look it up, we had the longest ever working group session we've ever had. It started about 8 o'clock in the morning and ran till about 2 o'clock the next day, 2 a.m. the next day. It was the host requirements document, RFCs 1122 and 1123. If you get a chance, they're still actually really interesting and useful documents, even as old as they are. But some of the choices that are in that document were fueled by basically complete exhaustion more than reasonable choices. I'm going to talk a little bit about just what the IETF is. Again, enough to get you some context for what's going on here. We're going to compare the IETF to other standards development organizations and talk a little bit about our culture. And the IETF does have a culture, and it's important for you to understand what's going on here. Etiquette, basics about how you want to participate in this meeting to make sure you don't annoy the other people that are in here and make sure you don't get annoyed yourself. The working groups and the working group etiquette, how the IETF makes decisions, consensus. I will talk a little bit about some of the people that are involved in the thing that you may need to know or you may encounter over your time, and just sort of understand what position they have in the meeting and in the IETF. And the useful people, documents, a description of the Internet Research Task Force. If you want a longer description of that, stay in this room after this discussion. There's an introduction to the IRTF after this, and a list of other resources that are available to you as newcomers. The IETF is an organized activity of the Internet Society. That wasn't always the case. The IETF started out, strangely enough, as an engineering organization. It's now a standards organization. Originally, it was an engineering organization designed that had the purpose of getting the NASA Science Internet, NanoSFNet, Department of Energy's ESNet, the MILNet, and the ARPANET. Basically, it was a United States government proprietary research task force that was designed to put the beginnings of the Internet together. About meeting 10, we turned into a standards development organization, and the Internet changed from a US-centric, US government-centric thing into something that was much broader. 30 years later, you can't tell where the original stuff was anymore. There are many working group meetings happening in the 5 days that you're going to be here. The agenda, which I'll talk about a little bit later, lists pretty much every single one of them, and you can find information about what those things are. The working groups are organized by areas. This is only really important to you right now because if you're interested in a working group or a topic, chances are that topic is shared by other things in the same area. So if you're dealing with, say, for example, TLS, you may want to go and look at authentication or authorization in the security area. Okay, if you're looking at TCP, Transport Control Protocol, you may want to go and have a talk with the transport area and SCTP, Session Control Transport Protocol. So almost all of our standards work is done by the working groups. And that's, again, where you will probably spend most of your time. And most of your time with the IETF won't be spent in the meetings. It will be spent on the mailing list, conversing, writing documents, and then coming to the IETF meetings to discuss what you've been doing. You'll also see a group of people wandering around. Oh, thank you. Please. I'm going to swap microphones. Oh, okay. Well, apparently I'm not swapping microphones yet. Ooh, that level is high, I think. Okay, so no, it's not good. It's like feeding back on me. Okay, so the Internet Architecture Board is also an organized activity of the Internet Society. We are a sibling organization with them. In some ways, for our standards things, they are an externally facing organization. That's where all the liaisons and things like that go. So you will see them wandering around here, and they will be participating in the IETF plenary and giving you a description of what's going on external to the IETF in some ways. There's a bunch more stuff that you could learn, but most of it is not immediately important to you for this meeting. So always ask questions if you need the questions answered, but don't sweat the small details for now. Okay. I'll trade you that. That. Testing. 1, 2, 3, 4. We got a level on that? Okay. How's that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you guys hear me in the back? Okay, cool. And you've got a good level for recording? Cool. Okay, so the IETF, like I said, is a standards development organization. You can't just develop it, though. You need to make sure it's useful. You need to make sure it's manageable. At one point in time, the internet consisted of something like 10 networks and 700 computers. That was 30 years ago. It's much worse now. If we didn't build something that was scalable and manageable, we would basically have gone out of business and the entire internet would have fallen over. So this is what this organization was looking for, making sure that we can continue to scale, we continue to be manageable, and we continue to have a useful internet. How many of you guys have participated in other standards development organizations like ISO or things like that? 5, 6, 7, that's not bad. Okay, so most of you guys won't have to unlearn anything. The IETF is kind of a different organization. We expect you to participate as individuals. You're not here as representatives of your company, although your companies are probably paying for you, I would guess. We are self-selected individual participants. We do things in many ways bottom up. We pick good ideas or ideas we think that are good, and then try and figure out whether or not a standard makes sense with respect to that. There's no formal voting. I'll talk a little bit about how we come to conclusions later on. We have no formal government role. We're not chartered by the United States government. We're not part of something like IT or ISO. Traditional SDOs generally have some form of formal voting. They generally have organizational members. Sometimes they have individual members, but that's fairly rare. And sometimes the memberships are based on the country you're in. So they also have kind of a wider set of things to deal with than we do. You can have standards organizations that deal with a number of threads on a screw. There's actually a standards organization that has a that defines the standard recipe for a fruit cake. Seriously, fruit cake. They are mostly top-down, usually top-down, and they are sometimes legally or treaty mandated, or sometimes you have to comply with them because that's what the law says. We're mostly not in that space. We will be different than those organizations. So if you were expecting us to be like them, throw that away and start over. Pretty informal. Occasionally you'll see people with coats and ties here. You know, we occasionally cut off their ties, but that hasn't happened for a few years. We are smart and we are opinionated. And if you're here and you're successful, you will probably be in both of those categories. Some of the people here are blunt. They don't mean to be rude. It's just the way the culture has been here. We have a culture. You're going to have to adapt to it. If you are coming in and expecting your way to be the way it is, it's not the case. Over time, as you participate in it, you will change our culture, but it will take a while. Don't expect that what you think is right what you think should be right is actually right in the context of the IETF. Now, I put this last sentence here just to explain something. Occasionally we get people, especially the ones who have dealt with other standards organization, coming in here in a group to present an idea that they think they want to standardize in the internet. We look for good technical ideas. Okay, if you come in with a dumb idea or an idea that a company wants to sell because they have the patent on or something like that, it will be identified as a dumb idea and pretty much rejected in the space. So dumb ideas forcefully presented are still dumb ideas. If it's a good technical idea, you don't need to bring in all the hundreds of people to pack the rooms. We don't vote. And again, this is another thing that you'll learn as you do this stuff. We meet 3 times a year. There's, at this meeting, I think something on the order of 1,200 or so. We're generally running between 1,000 and 1,500 depending upon where we're meeting and when we're meeting. We have been up as high as 2,400 during the .com boom, but it's been a while since we've been there. There are a number of organized events. I talked about the working groups. There are 130 working groups, roughly, that are active in the IETF. Every meeting, we lose some, we gain some, but we've been trending upwards, so it's right around 130 right now. There are a number of birds of a feather sessions that will show up here. I'll talk about what a birds of a feather session is. It's sort of a proto working group. Internet Research Task Force also meets with us. They generally have 6 to 7 sessions describing what they're doing. Area-wide sessions, those 7 areas I talked about, generally have a summary session. Each one of the areas will meet at one point in time, and you'll get reports from the various working groups in the area, and just an idea of making sure that everything is done in the area that needs to be done. The plenary. We used to have 2 plenary meetings. We've combined them. It's now really long. There's a 3-hour plenary on Wednesday night, which is a description of everything going on in the technology, the internet architecture space, and the internet administration, IAOC, Internet IETF Administrative Oversight Committee. There will be tutorials and lunch sessions. Those are announced on the mailing list and on the agenda. Some of those may be useful for you. There are keynote sessions, for example, there. And that's one of the tutorials and lunch sessions are one of the few ways that we might look like a normal conference for you. We are not a normal conference. We are a working meeting. Social events, there's no social event per se for this meeting, but you are invited to the Newcomers welcome reception, which is immediately before the normal welcome reception. I recommend that you guys take an opportunity to go there because it's the opportunity for you to meet up with the working group chairs and the area directors on a one-on-one basis and go up to them, and if you have a question about something or an area that you're interested in, walk in. I think usually the Newcomers meet and greet has a set of tables and there will be a sign on it with the area on it. Go find the area, go walk over, talk to people, okay? If you find 2 people with a dot on their badge, the dots indicate various people managing the IETF, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. But if 2 people with a dot are talking, walk up to them and say, I'm a newcomer and I'd like to actually talk to one of you. It's okay. We want to hear from you. We want you to become good participants in the IETF, which means some case is speaking up. In fact, most cases means speaking up. So please take the opportunity to meet these people. By the way, as newcomers, you're considered newcomers for 5 meetings. So if this is your first meeting, you got 4 more meetings to go to the Newcomers meet and greet and do that. If you don't feel comfortable now, maybe next meeting you will. So keep that in mind. Hackathons and code sprints are mostly over. They're usually happening on the day before the IETF. Hackathons are just people getting together to build stuff. Code sprints are people getting together to build stuff for the IETF. Okay, a lot of the tools that we use for managing our process are built by people like you. If you want to volunteer, they have nice little tchotchkes that they give out saying, oh, I was a participant. I think they were coins last time. And then there are a number of non-public business meetings that you might see on the hotel schedule, but won't be on the agenda. And I will talk about the NOMCOM a little bit later on, the nominations committee. By the way, how am I doing? Am I going too fast, too slow? Okay. If you find me going too fast or too slow, well, not so much too slow. If you find me going too fast, please speak up. If you can't understand me, please speak up. Okay. Disorganized events. There will be one of the most important things. There are a couple more seats up here if you want. And by the way, yeah. So we need to get a bigger room. I don't quite understand why the newcomers briefing keeps growing. Okay. So one of the most important things about the IETF meeting is meeting up with people. Your hallway meetings are going to be possibly more important than the actual working group sessions. You get an opportunity to meet some of the people who have been working in this for 30 years or more, or you get the opportunity to meet new people and create friendships and working relationships that you're going to be using for the next 10 to 20 years. We've got people here who have been through maybe 10 different companies, but the one constant is they show up at the IETF. So the hallways meetings are really useful for you, either on a technical session or on just a getting to know people. Bar boss. Occasionally we'll have something that is not baked enough for a formal birds of a feather. It's a bunch of people want to talk about an idea that they're maybe not quite sure how to go forward in the IETF. You'll get these people saying, here's a bar boss. All that is an informal gathering of people. It is sometimes in a bar, and if it's in the bar, sometimes it's hosted, which means they'll buy the beer. So, look out for those. Sometimes you'll find them funny. If you're wandering around the hotel or the conference area, occasionally you'll find clusters of people, usually all facing inwards, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people, typing away roughly. Marathoning sessions, please leave the people alone unless you know what the session is about. They're working. YouTube will be there at some point along the way. But we get a lot of that going on. We use this time to interact very quickly and get a lot of things done in a very short period of time. And again, sometimes the informal stuff is more important than the actual formal stuff that's in there. There are 3 different ways of getting the agenda. There's 2 URLs and the apps. How many people here have downloaded the IETF app? Good. Does it make sense? Okay. So the app is your friend, use it. The data tracker is your friend, use it. All of this stuff will help you understand what's going on in the working group meeting. If you're going to go to a working group meeting, one of the most important things you can do is take a look at the agenda for the working group and sometimes take a quick look at least at the abstracts of the documents that are going to be discussed. So all of that should be available through the tool that you have here. These are pretty simple. Please be respectful to other people. We'll try and be respectful to you. When I said try, it's just like that. Introduce yourself. If you don't talk, we won't hear you. Simple as that. Don't harass the other people. We have a harassment policy. If you feel you're being harassed, let someone know. And by that I mean, look for somebody who has a dot on their thing, and not one of the smiley faces, but one of the solid dots. Tell them that you've got a problem. Ask them to help you. There's actually an ombudsman. There's actually an ombuds team, 3 people who are responsible for this. But to be honest, getting that data is harder than just telling you to find somebody with a dot. The guys with a dot will be able to help you find the right people to help you. Okay? Don't hog the food. Going in to the welcome reception, things like that, it looks a little bit like army ants. You know, they surround the food and they walk away and there's nothing left. So please grab something, walk away, munch, talk to people, go back if you want more, but let everybody else get a chance at it. Don't leave your bag unguarded. It is, we've had things stolen. We're actually a pretty good group of people, but you get people from off out of the street, or you get just confusion about where the bags are. Just watch what's going on. We really do care that you have a good meeting, and losing your laptop or your passports or your keys is a really bad way of starting. Please remember to sleep. This, depending upon what you're working on, that actually may be a hard thing. You might find yourself up at 2 or 3 in the morning still talking with that guy's in that cluster of people typing away. And do remember to enjoy yourself. You're in Chicago. It's a neat city. Get outside at least once or twice just to wander around and see what the city looks like. Working groups. A working group is where the main work of the IETF is done. It is a long-term organization. It starts with a charter. It generally has a number of work items that it's responsible for, basically documents that it is supposed to get through to standardization. There's a schedule. It continues on between the IETF meetings. It doesn't just go away and go into silent. And most of the work is done on the IETF, on the mailing list related to that working group. Generally, it gets preceded by a birds of a feather. Birds of a feather, oh, sorry. One of the things you need to understand about this is the working groups are not tutorial in any way, shape, or form. Okay, if you're expecting to learn something, read the documents and then listen to what they're talking about. If you go in expecting to be taught, you will be disappointed. Okay? Birds of a feather tend to be a little bit more tutorial because it's about a new idea, and it's about convincing people that this idea is something we want to do. They generally precede the thing. They generally consider the charter we're going to get. You convince the area director that it's a valid topic. He says yes. He signs off on the agenda, and he schedules it. He schedules it with the secretariat on the agenda. They generally only meet once. It's really rare for a birds of a feather to meet in multiple meetings. Occasionally, though, what happens is you had an idea. The discussion in the meeting says, yeah, you were going this direction. We think we need to go over on this direction. So you get completely redone. and you respin the ideas, and you go and talk about this direction later on. So again, that's fairly rare. Occasionally you get one-shot birds of a feathers, and those will be something on a topic that is timely. For example, the involvement in the IETF in privacy, in internet privacy, could have been one of those things. It's not something that you can put into standards as a general standards group, but it may be something that you want to talk about adding to, like the securities, to the RFCs as a general consideration. So, sorry. Pointy end of the stick refers to the point of spear. That's where all the work gets done. This is the pointy end of the stick for the IETF. All of the areas are where you want to go. I mentioned again, look at the areas that your working groups are in to figure out what you want to work on. We work the internet area and sort of get into layer 2 just a tiny little bit, MPLS, for example. Sorry, layer 2, 3. And we almost never get up into the applications layer. There's some stuff there that's applications enabling as opposed to a specific application. XMPP would be a good example of an applications layer protocol. Jabber is the actual protocol. XMPP is how it gets carried. So, only meet for a couple of sessions. This is our opportunity for high bandwidth time. We generally do not pick up new things. The working group meeting is going to be a combination of resolving new things, possibly hearing about new internet drafts or new documents that are being added to the charter or new work items that might be wanted to add. They are being screen recorded. If you want to get up and talk, it's okay. There's the microphone. Get up, say your name, you're an organization, speak clearly, be brief. We don't have blue sheets in this meeting for some reason, I don't know. There's an attendance sheet that's put in. It's your name and your organization. It's there mainly so we can figure out how large of a room we need the next time for the working group. Because if you sometimes think a working group is going to be 10 people and it's 500. And that's hard to sort of manage. So that provides us a little thing, a little bit of a hint. Do sign the blue sheets. We really want to know you're there. Among other things, it also gives us an indication of people who have been involved in the process. So it's a process management thing for standardization. It's one of those small little record keeping. Read the agenda and drafts. Do listen. And if the speaker's not speaking clearly enough, get up and tell them, or tell somebody to tell them. If you've read the document and you have a useful comment, if and only if, go ahead and feel free to comment. Be brief. Don't hog the microphone. Now, everybody look around you on the seats next to you. If your bags are there, okay, that's what I mean here. Sometimes you have a room that fills up and you're just trying to get everybody in. If you see that people are waiting for a seat, please move your stuff off before people ask you. But move it if they ask you anyways. So, and if you need to, ask somebody. It's not considered impolite to do it. I know sometimes it's hard with new people to do it, but please do it. Side conversations, avoid them. It's okay to make small comments to the guy you're sitting with, but if you're talking for more than about 3 seconds, the people around you are going to start giving you dirty looks because you're not being as quiet as you thought you could be. So please go on outside. There is this thing called Jabber that we use. It's basically a chat room. There is a chat room for every session that the IETF holds. I'll talk about Jabber a little bit later. If you want to ask a question, and especially if you're a non-English speaker, but you understand written English a little bit better, it's okay to use the Jabber channel to ask a question for clarification, and somebody else who is listening can help you. So it's a way for communicating in the meeting without actually making noise. Consensus. Let's see this for a second. The IETF, as I said, doesn't vote. It decides whether or not based on what we call rough consensus. And rough consensus says that most everybody thinks this is a good idea. The people who don't think it's a good idea, we've actually addressed the question. We may not agree with it, but we've at least discussed it and disposed of it. Okay, so occasionally you'll be in a meeting and somebody will, and you'll start hearing humming. Okay, yeah, it's not feedback. So let me give you an example. Humming is a way of determining a rough consensus within a group of people without actually having voting. So for example, let's try it here. So the question is the room too hot, too cold, or just right? And I'll ask the question, and when I come to the question that you agree with, you will hum. So the amount of humming and how loud it is gives us an indication. So how many people here think the room is too hot? How many people here think the room is too cold? How many people think the room is just right? Yeah. Okay, so the consensus of the room by the chair is that it's just right. Now the chair actually thinks it's a little bit too hot, but that's okay. But the chair doesn't get to override consensus. Now, the key thing here is that the session chair gets to figure out what consensus is with respect to the working group in that meeting, but all things that happen here are subject to re-verification on the mailing list for further consensus. So the discussion will continue to go on even if you go on there. Pete Resnick wrote a really good description of this. It's kind of fun to read. Go ahead and read it if you get a chance. Yes. Okay. I didn't say, thank you. I usually hold questions till the end, and I probably should have said this. Okay. Again, we're self-selected. Pick a working group you want to go into. You're welcome in it, okay? The whole thing about this organization is you participate where you want to participate for as long as you want to participate and for everything you want to do. So there is no membership of working. There's no membership of the IETF for that matter. You are participants in the IETF. You're not members of the IETF. In fact, we have very few members of the IETF, and actually these are sort of the people that are the members legally identified as such. So does that answer your question? Yeah. I'm sorry. It's one of those things that's so basic that if somebody doesn't ask the question, you don't think it's an assumption that you make. So, okay. So most of these, I talked a little bit about these groups. The Internet Engineering Steering Group are the collection of area directors. Okay, so the 7 area, there's usually 2 or 3 area directors per one of those areas. So I think we've gotten 18 or 19. I think we got about 18 of them. I've lost track of how many. Working group chairs, you will see a bunch of people with these on, and you will actually see people with multiple dots. So, for example, the IAB chair is also a member of the IESG, so he has 2 dots, and the IETF chair is a member of the IEB, vice versa. So, nominations committee, we select our own management folks. We select our own management folks. And the nominations committee is how it's done. Once you've been participating in the organization for a while, you can volunteer for the nominations committee. If you've attended 3 of the last 5 meetings, you can be put on the random selection list, and then there's a random selection that pulls the people from there. 10 voting members and a bunch of other liaisons, and they're responsible for picking the next set of members of the area, the next area directors, the next chairs, the next IAB members, and the next IAOC, Internet IETF Administrative Oversight Committee. Local host. And I look at that and it always looks yellow on that. It's actually kind of a darker green. The local host are the people that are either the host organization or people we get who are local who know about how the network is set up here, how Chicago is set up. They are usually in the terminal room. There is a terminal room. If you have questions about networking, these are the guys to ask. They can also tell you where the great place is for pizza and beer. And apparently coffee is a real thing. Yeah, I'm not a coffee person. Internet Research Steering Group, these are the chairs of the IETF research groups. RFC editor, there's only one of those, and I'll talk about her in a half second. She's the person who is responsible for making sure the internet drafts turn into RFC standards. So IETF Secretariat, they're confusing me. They used to wander around in a purple shirt. Then last year they were in a black shirt, and now they're in a blue shirt. I know, makes it confusing. The Secretariat is a group of contractors that manages the IETF meeting process and actually manage the IETF infrastructure. They handle the servers that hold all of our tools. They are the meeting enablers. They are wonderful people. Thank them. They're the guys doing the registration. We usually end up with there's a permanent staff of about 10 plus the local registration staff. The guys in the blue shirts are the permanent staff. Thank them for the stuff if you get a chance, or tell them what you liked about the meeting or what you didn't like about the meeting. It will get back to us and will help, and it helps us figure out what's going on. Internet Assigned Names and Numbers Authority. These two, the IANA and the RCN, I'm only going to talk about because you will see them sitting out just outside here. They have tables and they have office hours. Right now, for your first meeting, you mostly don't need them. But if you do start writing standards, both of these people are important. The IANA is the person responsible for the parameter registry. And that means that they are responsible for assigning bits and values and spaces and fields, and anything that requires a relationship to a name they handle. So fifth bit of the third field of DNS extended things, they will figure out they will put a registry which says what that bit means. RC editor is responsible for basically turning your crummy prose into good internet standards. So they will take and they will actually do an editing pass on anything that makes it to that point, and they will turn it into a good quality formal document, and they're responsible for publication and production. So this has come a long way. Does anybody know what RC stands for here? Yeah. So way back in 1969, I think it was, the first RC came out, and the RC series way precedes the internet and way precedes the IETF. So, but it's now our formal session. There's one other piece of information that you should know. There's an independent submissions editor, and he's responsible for dealing with things that aren't coming in from the IETF, but that are sort of related to what the internet might be. If you've got an idea that you might want to publish that you don't think is mainstream enough, or if you've got a standard that your company has that your company would like to publish for reference for other people, the independent submissions editor is how you do it. You basically give him a copy of the document in RC in internet draft format, and it gets published. And after a couple of editing passes and approval, it gets published. As I said, they keep changing their shirts. These are now blue. But these are good people. Say hi to them. If you have issues with hotel or things along those lines, they can help. And sometimes they can even help with things that you never would have thought they could help with. Ray is the administrative director for the IETF. He is an employee of the Internet Society. He is responsible for overseeing those contracts and actually sort of dealing with the day-to-day type of things. IANA staff, again, you'll see these people sitting out, I think it's right over in that corner there. Usually it's Amanda, Michelle, and Sabrina with Elise wandering around. Heather is our RC editor, and her staff will be there. I think Sandy's here this time around. And Neville just got reappointed. Neville is not actually an employee of the RRC. He's actually a volunteer like you guys for the specific job. So if you want to become an editor later on, talk to him. He can explain to you why you really don't want to do it, but he really wants you to take it because he's tired of it. So I talked about this before. This is the URL. This is everything you wanted to know about the IETF, but we're afraid to ask. It's a little bit old, but it's actually still pretty close to what we're doing today. There is a meeting wiki. If you haven't seen this, you should. If you are looking especially for somebody to share a cab with on your way home to the airport, you can actually post there a a request and tell them when you're going and make arrangements to meet somebody. Lots of tutorials, including the tutorial, the Newcomers briefing that was done before I took it over, which was much more of a history. So if you want to look at that, it's about an hour and a half worth of time. List of lists. There's a working group mailing list. There are lots and lots of other mailing lists. There's usually like, there's the IETF mailing list. Look at this, figure out what you want to subscribe to, and then when you're done, when you've basically completely gotten overwhelmed by the amount of email you're getting, you can reduce it. So you are subscribed to this. You're also subscribed to the 98 All and 98 Attendees mailing list if you checked the box for it. So it's a useful reference. If you got something that's specific to you being a first timer, send it to that list rather than to the 98 All or 98 Newcomers, or sorry, or 98 attendees list. Network information. That actually is the correct URL. That's where you go if you're trying to figure out how what you're doing wrong on network. And I'm going to talk about the network stuff in a few seconds. Internet Research Task Force is a group of groups that look at things that the IETF is not quite ready for. It is not the IETF, but they meet with us. They generally work on, like I said, researchy topics like delay tolerant networking, which is also known as interplanetary internetworking. You're welcome to attend. You're not actually, you were talking about membership. This actually has membership. You have to, in most cases, you have to ask to join, and the chair and the membership will decide whether or not you can participate. And they won't do it unless you actually have something and contribute specifically to what they're looking at. So, but you're welcome to go in and listen, and sometimes the discussions will be open for all in those meetings. They tend to also be a little bit more tutorial than the normal working groups are. Newcomers page, tools page, Jabber, mostly self-explanatory. Jabber I'll get into in a half second. Companions program. How many people here came with people who aren't attending the IETFs? The family, friends, okay. The companions page, we actually have a companions program which provides a little bit of mechanism for people to figure out how to meet with other people who are here who are IETF widows and widowers, divorcees, whatever the case may be. So it's a useful thing to pass on to your significant other or your kids. And there's also a companion program badge, which they can get in and have some of the food with us at the various things. Newcomers meet and greet, I talked about. It's on the agenda for just before the welcome reception. I think it's 4 to 5. You are all invited. You're invited for your next for your five meetings. Again, please go see there. Naveen Khan, who's one of the secretariat, coordinates the Newcomers informal dinner. And I think last time we actually had 2 of them because there were so many people who wanted to go. So if you're interested in meeting up with other newcomers and having dinner, send an email to Naveen and she'll send you the details. And generally you meet in the lobby and move on from there. Mentoring. How many people signed up for mentoring here? Okay, that's good. There's also a speed mentoring thing happening right after this meeting in a different room. If you want an opportunity to just go in and get a quick one-on-one with somebody, that's a good place to go. So I do recommend the mentoring program. It hooks you up with somebody who is in your area or in your area of expertise, and usually in your language class, in your language category. So it can be helpful to get a leg up on what you want to do. Local cautions. Chicago is a pretty safe city, but it's a big city in the United States. So please, the panhandlers are not too aggressive, and the thieves are usually, not too aggressive either. Sorry. If you're at night, walking at night, please know your surroundings and walk in a group, especially in this downtown area, because it does clear out at night, and it's a little bit, it's not like walking in, say, Paris or London, if you will. Windy City, it is, you've seen what the weather is like here. Be aware. And you can go on a completely sunny day, and 15 minutes later, it will be raining on you. So be aware of what the weather's going to say. Watch your stuff. Even the conference room, that again is the most important thing to look at. So some of the people have already worked through this, and some people have been on the computers for the entire time I've been talking, so you mostly don't need this. But the IETF runs its own network. It is one of the best networks you'll ever connect to. We have been doing this for the meetings probably since about meeting 8 or meeting 9, and we've gone from T1s up to, you know, multi-gigabits up to, I forget what we're at for this particular one. We take over the entire hotel network, both the, usually we take over the hardware, the hardwired stuff and the Wi-Fi. We put our own Wi-Fi in the conference areas in addition to whatever else is there. And these are generally the SIDs that apply. Now, the open networks, you just connect to them. The networks that have security on, it's really simple. User ID password, user ID IETF, password IETF, and it's WPA2 enterprise mode. Anybody not understand that? If you have problems, the terminal room has the sheet on how to deal with the network stuff there printed out, so you can go and pick up one there and you can get help. They are the ones to help. So, Jabber. Anybody, how many people have heard of Jabber here? Okay, that's good. The IETF, Jabber is a protocol based on the XMPP protocol, and it's a set of conference rooms or chat rooms and individual chat sessions between people. There is a chat room, a Jabber chat room for every single session the IETF runs, and the format is generally working group name at jabber.ietf.org. So if you're in the meeting, you can join the Jabber room for that meeting and ask questions. Okay. If you haven't played with Jabber before, go here for the clients and here to register an account. Pretty straightforward. The problem with, people have asked me to recommend clients, and I really can't do that. The problem is they keep changing, and some of them I thought were great last year are no longer maintained this year. So please do your own research. Again, if you have some problems, usually there's somebody around. In fact, one of the guys who runs a good portion of the jabber.org stuff shows up here. Pete St. Pierre? No. Anyway. And finally, please take the survey. So I'll take questions now. Nobody has questions. Come on. Okay, could you go back to, okay, we're going to demonstrate how to do a working group. Come to the.
Could you please go, oh, sorry, my name is Sam. Could you please go back to the previous slide?
Okay. That's it? Seriously, I had better questions than the last group. Okay. The whole point about the IETF is collaboration and communication. Okay, we want you to be successful here. We want you to become the next generation of people bringing forward the internet standards. So if you get an opportunity, this is an opportunity for you to communicate, to make friendships, to make acquaintances, to make long-term commercial successes of what you're thinking about, to put your ideas into practice. Please speak up, please interact with us, and please have a good time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Go forth and standardize. Oh, are there any more handouts back there? Okay. Ask at the registration desk. Yeah. Oh, or there's actually one online as well.